Alrighty, ladies and fucksticks, with mainnet and Richard Hart was right trending on Twitter, it is now time to give a major update in regards to what's going on with PulseChain, the launch, and different products building on the ecosystem. So, folks, crack open a Bud Light, chop off your cock, because we got massive news. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video because I want to share with you guys a bit of my launch strategy, a bit of alpha, so make sure you stay tuned. Like and subscribe.
This is not a test. Stay tuned for further instructions.
Hey! Yeah, we broke the ceiling. We going from broke to billions. PulseX up next, yeah, we plotting the pump. No vex for a hex, yeah, we locking it up. PulseChain, no, we not in a rut. With a heart like Richard the Marcus, we best. I'm a day one sacrifice, yeah, we guessed. And we going from broke to beast, we invest.
So, folks, now that we have official sources like KDP Crypto from Power City talking about how mainnet may be imminent at any single goddamn moment, people like Ivan on Tech, and now even some PulseChain devs coming out and making noise, I do think that we are now pretty goddamn close, folks. Looking at the hex price, we had a massive run up with version 3 and a correction with news of testnet version 4, which is funny because I think what we're experiencing is a bit of boy who cried wolf syndrome. I think we're all quite tired of waiting. We're tired of testnets. We all want to see PulseChain finally be here. And folks, I think there's a solid chance that we could get a poetic mid-May launch. At the time of recording, it's currently April the 28th. You know, could we get a PulseChain launch in 2 weeks? I don't think it's impossible. Ultimately, I don't know. But if I had to guess, are we closer to weeks or are we closer to months? I'd say there's a solid chance that we're closer to weeks, but we never know. In the meanwhile, I want to share some pretty big news here with the Internet Money Time wallet. Folks, I mean, this is a giant deal. So we had the news that they now have the wallet approved for the Apple App Store, which is huge. From what I understand, it's difficult to get listed on it, but this is a huge onboarding tool, okay? The fact that this is a wallet that has, cheaper fees than MetaMask, I believe the fees are 0.72%. Anyways, go read the white paper. My point is, this is a wallet that redistributes the fees back to token holders. Such a no-brainer. Currently, they launched the token on Ethereum, which is a trading pair with Wrapped ETH and BNB as well. But something you gotta understand is that currently the wallet is in beta. They're still waiting on security audits and mainnet of PulseChain. So this is not the full version. Once the full version is up and running, everything's good. I'm frankly going to be using this wallet for all my swaps moving forward, and then have a hardware wallet where I do all my long-term storage. So this is super good to see with that. Now, something else that happened pretty recently was that the Phiat token went live, but not just that, the Phiat platform went live. So Phiat is a fork of Aave for those uninitiated. But this is super cool to see because now you can stake your Phiat and you'll be able to earn an APY, APR, and kind of a little bit of all the tokens they have listed here on their DApp. Now, something you gotta understand is that they're rolling this out very slowly, where over time they'll be increasing the amount of coins available on the platform, how much money you can deposit. They're doing a slow burn, so just understand that the current state of things is not at all indicative of how this will look like a year from now. Once the bull market's here and there's a bunch more volume, I'm sure the APR rates, APY staking rates will be quite juicy looking. And the fact that we're experiencing a bit of a correction now is frankly very healthy in my opinion. We want to get the weak hands shaken out early because that makes the inevitable uptrend once the bull market comes more sustainable. Now, before we delve into more Power City news and some investment alpha, I do quickly want to mention that Coinbase is suing the SEC, which is super interesting. Their stock has been crashing and burning. In my opinion, if we start to kind of lose an obvious support level right here above $55 and the chance of retesting 40 is not unrealistic. The reason why this is worthwhile bringing up is because, god damn it, the SEC has not been providing clarity specifically to United States crypto companies as to what the hell you have to do to be compliant. So now they're suing the SEC, which I think is ultimately a good thing if the result is more regulatory clarity when it comes to the SEC. Because the SEC is essentially punishing Coinbase for some of their staking features, but then when Coinbase asks for clarification as to what is a digital security, the SEC won't give them that. So hopefully through this process, through what's going on with the XRP lawsuit, we get a bit of regulatory clarity in the end of things, which is why this is worth bringing up. Now, I want to talk about Power City because Power City is doing many interesting things. They recently released how their Power City core looks like on the testnet, where you can go and stake your Watt token. And again, for the uninitiated, the whole idea of Power City is kind of a hub that builds out different dApps. For example, the PulseX swap, which is a multi-chain DEX aggregator. Super cool, super useful. Plus, they'll have Pixel Park and NFT Marketplace. Not to mention, they have Amplifier and the Accelerator, which is a front end for liquid loans. But they have the Earn protocol, which for those of you familiar with liquid loans, where you can take a loan against your PulseChain, a loan out against your PulseChain. Earn protocol is the same thing, where you can take out a loan against your PulseX. So they got some very, very useful dApps here. And if you just compare one of their dApps, the Earn protocol, to a competitor, well, not so much a competitor, but another protocol with a similar use case, Liquid Loans. Liquid Loans raised about $50 million, I believe. You ever take $5 million. Power City has only raised about $7 million. And they're building out half a dozen super, super interesting, useful dApps here. Just one of their dApps is equivalent to another protocol, Liquid Loans, that raised 50 million. They've only raised 7 million. My point is, in a sense, I think Power City is kind of flying under the radar and is, in a sense, undervalued. Now, there's a bit of very, very interesting news that I want to try my best to briefly summarize here. So you'll be able to stake the Watt token and earn a portion of all the fees accrued by all their different dApps. Now, something very interesting came out recently, which is all the wallet addresses that participated in the sacrifice phase will get what's called a Genesis wallet distinction. So when that wallet that you sacrifice from goes to open up a stake in the Power City core, you will get a 2x staking bonus on your Watt tokens. Not just that, but you'll get an NFT associated with that stake that represents the ownership of that stake. And with this, you'll have the ability to go to the Pixel Park NFT Marketplace and put up this NFT for sale that again represents the ownership of your Watt token stake. And this is very interesting because what you'll be able to do is go and perhaps purchase someone else's NFT that represents the ownership of their Watt stake. And if it's a Genesis wallet stake, you can buy that and get the 2x staking bonus. So instead of buying Watt on the open marketplace and opening up a brand new stake that way, you might want to go and buy an NFT instead, specifically a Genesis wallet NFT that has that 2x staking bonus. As well, you'll be able to merge these NFTs together and potentially get an even higher staking bonus and an even higher rarity in the NFT. So this whole NFT stuff introduces a lot of super, super interesting game theory, where if any one of these dApps ever starts to get any kind of traction, might really be worth paying attention to. And given that they have, a multi-chain DEX aggregator similar to a 1inch, except multi-chain, a major NFT marketplace, a version of Liquid Loans, except for PulseX, an amplifier, and accelerator, guys, like these are very useful dApps. If these things get any kind of volume, this stuff might be worth paying attention to. Now, I do want to reveal my thinking when it comes to all this stuff, because I do cover a lot of other projects building on PulseChain. But I want to make it clear that for me personally, I view a lot of these other interesting projects building on top of PulseChain as a interesting diversification play, where I personally will choose to only allocate a small percentage of my portfolio to these diversification plays, maybe 5-10%. But I want the bulk of my portfolio to be PulseChain, PulseX, and Hex, just because I think those are the most well-established with the likeliest chance of performing very well. So while I do like to talk about these other cryptocurrencies and while I do dabble in them, for me personally, my approach is only a 5 to 10% allocation each one of these things. Whatever you find interesting, if you think, hey, you know what, I like PulseChain a lot, but this is a cool idea, I want to bet on it, I personally choose to perhaps allocate 5% of my portfolio. That way, the majority, 60, 70, 80% of my portfolio is PulseChain, PulseX, Hex, and then I'll allocate a couple percentage points here and there for some of these diversification plays. Not financial advice, but I do want to reveal that is how I personally choose to think about these different projects. Now, I want to reward all you guys for making it this far into the video with revealing a bit of alpha in regards to my approach for the PulseChain launch. So there's good reason to believe, I won't delve into all the reasons because we can talk about this for 10 minutes, as to why there's a good chance that PulseChain will be the thing that everyone's trying to buy initially. A lot of people missed out on the PulseX sacrifice phase, yada, yada, yada. There's good reasons to think that PulseChain is going to be the most sought after thing. Therefore, if we look at the current ratio on the testnet of what you're getting of PulseChain to PulseX, the ratio is about 1 to 3, which I think personally kind of a 1 to 2, 1 to 3, even 1 to 5 ratio kind of sort of makes sense. I can stomach that. But my point is, come mainnet, if everyone is trying to swap into PulseChain and selling their PHEX and selling their PulseX, and if we start to get some kind of crazy ratio, like if we get a 1 to 10 ratio, a 1 to 15 ratio, a 1 to 20 ratio, then I might consider selling some of my PulseChain for PulseX. Now, why would I do this? I might do this because of the fact that you can stake PulseX, perhaps not immediately, but eventually, in a single side staking pool and earn an APY. And especially if you can get PulseX at a discount, you might be able to accumulate a disproportionate amount of PulseX than you would have otherwise, and therefore earn a disproportionate amount of yield in one of these staking pools. Like if we take a look at a very similar protocol to PulseX, PancakeSwap being the main decentralized exchange on Binance Smart Chain, we can see that there's single-side staking pools, and many of these pools have an APR in 100%, 37%, 31%. So eventually, I believe that there's likely to be somewhat of a similar case on PulseX. And if you can stake your PulseX in one of these pools and earn 31%, 37%, well, or even potentially higher APR rates, well then in 2 to 3 years, you could probably, just through selling your yield in these tokens for PulseChain every week, every month, every quarter, have a pretty equal sized bag of PulseChain to PulseX after 2 or 3 years using this strategy. Because what you want to be looking out for is a deal, folks. If everyone is FOMOing into PulseChain and Hex, PHEX, PulseX is at a discount, well then, and the way I'm thinking is accumulating PulseX at a 1 to 10, 1 to 15, 1 to 20 ratio, probably at some kind of discount, and you can get a disproportionately larger size stake while the market is ignoring or wrongly dismissing or wrongly valuing a token that actually has a lot of value. Because sure, PulseX has the buy and burn, which is extremely bullish, constant buy pressure on the side of PulseX. But people are forgetting that with Hex and PulseChain, to take profits, you got to sell the token itself or take out a loan, blah, blah, blah. There's other things you can do. But with PulseX, if you want to take profits, then what you could do is single-side stake and sell the yield in another token. So not only is there constant buy pressure on PulseX, but PulseX has the best use case for if you want to take profits, not having to sell the actual token itself. So it has a bunch of buy pressure and a very good reason to alleviate a bunch of sell pressure. So if we see the market being over euphoric towards PulseChain by some crazy ratio, again, a 1 to 3, a 1 to 5, you could somewhat stomach that. That's essentially the market saying they believe PulseChain, if you got a 1 to 3 ratio, will 3x outperform PulseX. No one really knows, but you could see that case. But if you get a 1 to 10, 1 to 20 ratio, that's the market saying, I believe PulseChain will 20x outperform PulseX. And that's far less believable. So if you can get that deal, then it might be worth considering. Now, with all that being said, frankly, all of this ratio trading is completely unnecessary. If you have a higher risk tolerance, if you want to allocate a smaller portion of your portfolio to some of these ratio trades, then that's on you. But frankly speaking, folks, the most amount of winners in the space are the people that buy dips and hold long term. It's all frankly unnecessary. The fewer actions you take, the better. So I say all this in the hope to not cause any kind of FOMO, making you feel like you need to ratio trade. You really don't. But for those with a higher risk appetite, I did want to share my thoughts as to where you might be able to get a deal. So folks, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. It's a brand new channel, so every like, every sub, every share helps tremendously. I look forward to getting rich alongside you. Until next time, take care.